Hi, everyone. I have had a lot of questions this fall about new students, and we did have a few issues during monitoring related to new students. And although the laws are not clear on timelines, um, we had an example where things went way beyond any reasonable length of timelines. So I did put together a document with some timelines as far as how quickly we would want to proceed with new students. So um, the first thing is starting services. This is very clear in statute and case law that for students that come into your school district that are special education students, you should not take any longer than it takes for general education students to start them within the school. So you can't say, okay, Susie, you're general ed. Go ahead. You can come on in and start services, start in school today. Oh, Johnny, you're in special ed. We got to wait and get you set up with a schedule. We're going to wait in a couple weeks or something that way. Now, um, if there was a clear safety issue, for example, a student had a significant health condition that needed to have a full-time paraprofessional or something that way, and your district policy is that students can start the day they register, you may want to take a day or two longer, but under no circumstances should it take 2 to 3 days longer than it would take for a general education student. And that would only be if there was no way you could have predicted that that student had special needs, had those needs ahead of time. If the student has reason to believe, the district has reason to believe the student has a disability, you should go ahead and provide those services. Um, uh, and in order for the child to receive FAPE, this would need to be a good quality reason to believe that the child had a disability. For example, if you talk to the home district, the prior district, and they said, yep, we sent you a copy of the IEP. Um, you should have it by now, and it got lost in technology world. Um, if you got some information from them about the amount of services, that kind of thing, you could go ahead and do that until you found that IEP and got a hold of that. Or if a parent brought in a copy of the IEP, that is certainly enough. If it appears to be a valid current IEP, you would go ahead and provide those services um, as soon as the student starts. Uh, we want to get official documents from the prior school district. So your secretary is, of course, always trying to request those records. Printing those records from SPED forms is not sufficient. This has become a significant issue this fall and was an issue during monitoring. It should not have your letterhead at the top and then have the prior district information in that. You should have those original documents from the school district. Particularly the area of the service page can become an issue. There are hidden numbers behind the scenes in SPED forms, and a 410 in our world might mean learning disabilities, and in another school district that might mean orientation and mobility. And so sometimes those services don't align and you have to get those official documents. It also can become very confusing when you're reading an IEP and it says Blue Earth Area School District on it, and then it has a whole bunch of service providers that I've never heard of before. So make sure you're getting original documents from the home school district, the prior school district. You should request a copy of the evaluation report, the IEP, the most recent prior written notices, as well as the most recent progress reports. At a minimum, you must get the evaluation report and the IEP. Be sure you're documenting those attempts to get those records and just keep that in the file. Um, if you cannot obtain an IEP and an evaluation report within 2 weeks, make a personal phone call to that home school district. That can have a lot of value and can really make a difference. So call the school district, ask to talk to the special ed coordinator, um, ask to talk to the case manager, see if the secretary can find out who that was, something that way, and see if you can get a hold of those records. If you need contact information, I can help with that as well. Um, Document your attempts to get those records again. You'll hear a few things repeatedly for a reason. Um, One of those is to make sure you're documenting that. Um, Within 3 weeks of, if you can't get a copy of an evaluation report, you should proceed into an evaluation within 3 weeks. Um, and if you can't get a copy of that evaluation report, that student must meet initial criteria for services. Again, I'm repeating this. Make sure you're getting original documents. when I say original documents, not from SPED forms that you're getting a copy from the school district. You're not printing them off of SPED forms. If a student comes in from out of state, generally you're going to have to go into an evaluation, but you don't always have to. You can print off a Minnesota criteria page, a blank Minnesota criteria page in any area of suspected disability, and go through that evaluation report. Write on that evaluation report any of the components that the student met in that most recent evaluation, and if that most recent evaluation report shows that the student met initial criteria in all of the areas, you would not need to proceed to an initial evaluation. Just attach that component sheet and you're good to go. If the student did not meet initial criteria in each of the areas, then you would need to move into an initial evaluation. During that evaluation, go ahead and provide services according to, similar to that previous IEP, enough to ensure that the student receives FAPE. Different districts and states do things different ways, so it may not reflect exactly. You do not need to write a new IEP. You should not write a new IEP during that time. Just make sure you're talking to the parents and communicating with the parents along the way about what services will look like while you're doing that evaluation. When an evaluation is needed, I needed to give you a guideline on this. If a student moved in at the beginning of the school year and the student needs a new evaluation, you should have that evaluation and IEP written by December 1st. That should be completed if the student moved in at the beginning of the school year. If the student moved in from Minnesota, provide services consistent with the previous IEP, if you can do that. If you look at that IEP and you go, boy, that fits right in exactly how we would provide services, go ahead, give the parents a phone call, let them know who you are as a case manager, and go ahead and you can just provide services according to that previous IEP until the IEP is due. If you cannot provide services consistent with that prior IEP, you need to hold a meeting within 3 weeks. If it's a small change, like maybe they have 65-minute periods and you have 47-minute periods, you might do an amendment. Again, give the parents a phone call, make sure they're aware of who you are and those kinds of things. But if you're deviating from that IEP significantly, make sure you hold a meeting within 3 weeks. Now, during that time as well, what you would need to do is make sure that you get this information in SPED forms. And so I have on the attached document what you would need to get into SPED forms. But you're not going to be able to finalize the IEP with that information. So you're going to want to make sure that the goals are in the IEP and that the services are in the IEP and the IEP meeting and evaluation reports are all in there so that any reports that are created will flow appropriately so that the school psychologist is aware of those evaluation reports coming up. The goals need to be in there so that you can do progress reports. So I created a new student here. I put the goals in and the services in, the IEP meeting and the evaluation report date. But I can't do the progress reports until I validate and finalize this IEP. And it's not going to let me do that because I don't have all of the components filled in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here. I'm going to fill in the areas beyond that that the student needs. If for some reason you don't know, you don't have to fill these out completely. But just get the information in here. Now, for example, the goals, each goal must have 2 objectives. But at this point, you're not looking at them for compliance. You're looking at them so you can get it validated in SPED forms. So I just went in, filled all those in. I clicked validate. I cheated the system. Oh, shoot. And I forgot to click save. So I'm going in, showing you how to cheat the system just enough so that I can get this completed. Now I'm going to click save and I can go ahead and finalize that IEP at this time. So I got that IEP finalized so I can go in and complete the progress reports. If you go past a point where you're doing progress reports, you need to make sure you get that in there so you can get those progress reports completed in SPED forms. So there's a way to get the minimum amount of information in SPED forms so that reports will run and you can report progress on the IEP. I hope that made sense. Again, thank you for all you do. I appreciate the difference you make every day for kids. Take care.